Good afternoon everyone, welcome back to the ObaNutrition channel. Today in this video, I will be sharing about why do we fall sick. Now to answer this question, I asked myself, why do we find that chicken raised in the city do actually fall sick quite often as compared to those raised in the village? I investigated what they actually consume, a chicken which is in the village versus a chicken which is actually thriving in the city. Nonetheless, I also looked at the environmental conditions at which they are grown up with and eventually become full-grown chicken. Well, this might not be scientifically very plausible because as you understand is that we chicken and human beings belong to very different species, different genus and even families. Our binomial nomenclature is not even related as to compare it with maybe with something like chimpanzees or monkeys. We are not actually very close relatives. But there's something that is very similar with them. Is that what makes them sick is very much comparable to human beings. And nonetheless, they are actually omnivorous as human beings. Chicken do actually feed on animals as well as plants, and human beings do the same. So these are the things that I found out which might explain to us why do human beings actually fall sick nowadays. The first thing is that both sickly chicken and human beings consume lots of grains, and particularly wheat and processed flours. If you are to compare the chicken that normally falls sick, and this is for the chicken which are raised in the city or commercial centers, their diet is particularly processed flours and even wheat. Any farmer who is raising such type of chicken will find that they not only have food stores or feed stores, but also drug stores alongside. The vet is actually a common friend to them, and even the agrovet that they normally go to buy food, they do not only buy feed but also drugs. And this is something that if you were to look at the chicken which are back in the village, most of the time you'll find their diet is not marked particularly grains or even the processed flours or even wheat. They are mostly consuming things that are in the soil, such as insects and some types of fruits and grasses as well. So when you talk also about processed flours, I also realized this. Hens that are actually fed mostly on maize seed itself versus hens fed on maize flour. There's a huge difference in terms of mortalities and even incidences of illnesses. Hens that are raised mostly on things like flowers from maize or even other type of flowers, they're actually falling sick quite faster as compared to those that are fed on the seed itself. Nonetheless, the ones that are fed on wheat, they are very vulnerable to fall to even illnesses such as viral illnesses such as Newcastle and what have you. So if you correlate that with human beings feeding on a lot of grains, and this is not being discriminative. There are human populations that feed on lots of grains. For example, the tribe of Kikuyus, they feed on mostly grains, which is githeri. You'll find that there are more health centers, not because of, let's say, resources availability, but more health centers because there's a high incidences of metabolic illnesses among them. And this is not being discriminative at all. It is just a fact to be highlighted. Also, human beings that feed on lots of wheat. And if you are to make it more accurate, is to look at the human beings that were the first large-scale growers of wheat, that is the Egyptians. They mostly fell ill from diabetes, cardiac disease, cancer, hypertension. All these were illnesses that were very common to them. And that's why it is known that the first place where medicine was actually invented was back in Egypt, because these were the people who first grew wheat at large scale and as a result fell ill from illnesses related to them. There's also another type of grain that is normally consumed by human beings at large scale, which is called barley, that is used in the manufacture of alcohol. Human populations consuming lots of alcohol are very susceptible to also cardiac illnesses, liver cirrhosis as well. So there's a huge correlation between higher grain consumption, higher wheat consumption, and much of processed flour consumption with the occurrence of metabolic illnesses today. The other point is that chicken that also fall ill quite often versus humans that fall quite ill quite often, they are consuming less amount of quality animal protein. If you look at the chicken raised back at your village, they consume mostly maggots, insects, particularly worms, and even these termites, these flying termites during the rainy season. Well, commercial chicken do hardly consume these. These are actually foreign food to them. Mostly those who are raising broilers and layers. These are other types of food that are strange to them. But if you are to look at the rate of which we are having prevalence of illnesses among them, it is quite higher among the commercial chicken, which feed on less quality animal protein. Now, compare and contrast that with human beings. Human beings that are consuming less amount of quality animal protein are also falling ill very quite fast. Malnourished children who are deficient in protein, such as kwashiorkor, are very prone to falling ill every now and then, as well as the geriatric populations who might not be able to access quality protein and have to do with a lot of much of vegan diet are also experiencing protein deficiency, which makes them ill as well. Now, to be very specific with this, I've emphasized the part of quality animal protein because there's also the poor quality animal protein that we get it from the fake meats such as saucy and even the ones that are cured meats such as the sausages and bacons and what have you. So when I'm mentioning quality animal protein, I'm meaning protein that you actually buy from the butchery and a good butchery as well as the kienyeji type of chicken, the kienyeji type of eggs that you can buy. When it comes to fish, you're not deep frying fish but actually cooking the fish, as well as the sardines, you're actually cooking them instead of deep frying. This ensures that you're getting all the minerals intact and the vitamins. So human populations that are actually consuming quality animal protein do fall sick quite less and live longer. Compare that with the Japanese. The Japanese are higher consumers of fish and they have a longer lifespan. Look at the Maasais. Maasais also as well, they consume higher amounts of animal protein and they as well fall sick quite less often. They actually even take even the blood itself. I'm not telling you to take blood, but if you compare and contrast the amount of animal protein consumed, it is much of a difference when it comes to prevalence of illnesses. And why is protein very essential, and particularly animal proteins? Because animal protein has all the all the essential amino acids that the body requires. This ensures that your immune system functions at its most optimum range. All right. The third point is that both sickly chicken and human beings consume less amount of vegetables. Chicken that consume more amount of vegetables, you'll find that they produce higher, very quality protein, and nonetheless they are less susceptible to illnesses. And this is because vegetables have various vitamins and minerals that make them quite nutritious both to chicken and human beings. One, they have a vitamin called vitamin C, which is very essential for boosting the immune system, ensuring very good skin health, ensuring that you are also having a very well-formed dental system or a dental formula. So compare and contrast that also with those human beings that will say they don't like vegetables. They are very susceptible to a lot of tooth problems, a lot of skin ailments, and nonetheless their immune system is very weak. Actually, during COVID, you would find some people taking vitamin C supplements, yet they can get that from if they consumed the right types of vegetables. Nonetheless, you also have vegetables being very rich in potassium. Potassium is very essential for ensuring you're having overall good cardiac health. You do not suffer from hypertension. You also have very good muscle functionality, and you also don't ail from diabetes. Well, most diabetics are very deficient in potassium, and that could explain why they are having high blood sugar levels, because potassium is essential in removal of sugar from the bloodstream into the cells. Nonetheless, vegetables are also rich in a mineral called magnesium, and this is the green leafy vegetables. Any vegetable that you find green in color, it has magnesium. Magnesium is actually the central active site for the immune system, or let me say the central active mineral required for the immune system. Lower magnesium levels means that you'll have a very, very weak immune system, and you can find this magnesium freely from any green leafy vegetable. The fourth point is that both sickly chicken and human beings also consume less amount of roots. And someone might be asking me, what time do chicken actually consume roots? Every time you find this chicken burrowing the soil, they are also searching not only for the insects and worms, but also roots. These roots have antioxidants that are very essential in reducing inflammation. Now, the caveman usually did this as well. He used to burrow the soil for roots, and sometimes these roots also had some form of starch which provide them with energy to sustain them, such as the cassavas, arrowroots, sweet potatoes, the Irish potatoes as well. But nonetheless, there were these specific type of roots that they could also acquire that were rich in antioxidants, which could include the rhubarbs, the ginger, the beetroots, even the cinnamon roots, the onions. All these roots were very rich in antioxidants, which ensure that they never fall sick every now and then. But the modern human being is consuming less much of it, and that's why you are seeing a very huge spike in illnesses, particularly even diabetes itself. Because if, let's say, they were sourcing their form of starch from these roots, we would have a lesser emergence of hyperglycemia or high blood sugar levels, as well as hypertension. The fifth point is that both sickly chicken and human beings do not fast. I've observed this from commercial centers that are raising chicken. Chicken are provided with food 24 hours in a day. There is no time spent in the fasted state. Compare that with the natural behavior of chicken, is that they will close their feeding times when the sun sets at 6:30 p.m. and they will not feed before 6:30 a.m. in the morning. So between 6:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. in the morning, they are in the fasted state. Human beings also defy this rule again. They are not spending at least more than 12 hours in the fasted state. This causes them to also every now and then fall ill. Now, why is fasting essential? Fasting actually helps in removal of toxins from the body. It is a powerful detoxification tool. Now, for those who do not want to engage in it, you'll find that they are also falling ill every now and then. And also it applies with the chicken. Chicken which are having food accessibility 24 hours in a day, they are also having accessibility to drugs every now and then. It just matches with each other. The sixth point is that both sickly chicken and human beings defy the circadian rule about feeding. Now, the circadian rule about feeding states that you are supposed to have your first meal of the day after the sun has risen and your last meal of the day before the sun sets. That's the circadian rule. You'll find that chicken are adhering to this rule to the latter, but human beings are defying it by even having their last meal of the day at 11 p.m. and their first meal of the day at times even at 4 a.m. They're defying the rule that has been set. And someone might be wondering, why does this rule affect us? It's because our digestive system, particularly the enzymes, the digestive juices, even the hormones that are involved in digestion, they are set to follow the timing of the sun. For example, your hydrochloric acid, your gastric juice itself, it is released optimally when the sun is risen. But before the sun has risen, it is released at a very lower volume. And this might be explain why you suffer indigestion, particularly at night, because there is no gastric juice to ensure the digestion of food that you have fed at that time. So defying this circadian rule is resulting in more human beings suffering specifically from gastrointestinal disorders, and that's why we are going to experience more gastroenterologists coming on board, because we are not following the rules set by nature. That is, you feed your first meal of the day after the sun has risen, and your last meal of the day before the sun rises. Then the other thing that is happening is that both sickly chicken and human beings spend less time in the sun. Anytime you meet the free range chicken, they are spending more time in the sun. They're able to synthesize adequate amount of vitamin D that is essential for boosting your immune system. Human beings that are falling sick every now and then, they are indoors. They are not moving out to spend some time in the sun. You could find this very evident during the COVID time. The more time that was spent indoors during lockdowns, you'll find that the spike of COVID went up and up always. During the winter season or during the cold season, you find the spike of COVID also being up because there is much less time exposure to the sun. And actually, for those who are living in the winter regions, they actually had to take vitamin D supplements to prevent infection from COVID-19. And this is because vitamin D is very quite essential in boosting the immune system, and you can acquire it freely from the sun. So spending less time in the sun is causing most people to fall ill every now and then. The other point is that both sickly chicken and human beings do not acquire fresh air. The advantage of chicken raised in the village is that they can always acquire fresh air, and this is because they most likely are raised in a place that is well forested, so there is adequate carbon sinks, which ensures there's better aeration. For those which are in the city, which are raised in cages, being in cages means that they are not always acquiring this fresh air, because sometimes they are pooping on the floors, which is affecting the quality of air around them, instead of being out and acquiring fresh air. If you are to compare and contrast that with human beings spending much of their time indoors, they are also not acquiring good aeration, and they are also susceptible to falling to a lot of respiratory illnesses. Okay, the ninth point is that both of them, chicken and human beings, spend less time walking. Sickly chicken are put in cages, so there is no time that is spent walking. And there was the father of medicine called Hippocrates actually mentioned this. Walking is man's best medicine. So much less time spent walking is causing most human beings to fall ill every now and then, and even more specifically with mental disorders and nonetheless cardiac issues related to blood circulation. The last point is that both sickly chicken and human beings spend less time sleeping. Sleep is very essential in improving your health. Commercial chicken, they will always find that they have these light bulbs all around them, ensuring that awake 24/7. Very much awake. Their sleep pattern is disturbed by these lights. The same thing with human beings. They are having phones and laptops full of social media apps and gaming sites that keep them awake throughout the night. So much less time is spent sleeping, and it results in otherwise them falling ill every now and then. Now, those are the key 10 points that are causing human beings to fall sick nowadays, and I've compared and contrasted them with the behavior of chicken, which are more susceptible to illness than those which are not susceptible to it. I hope you have also learned one or two things and you will correct your behaviors in the future. So thank you for watching this video, and see you next time. Thank you.